Hi everyone, my name is Taisha Kabilo. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking the play button. I am so excited for the part 4 of Abraham's blessings here. Today we are looking at the life of Isaac. Isaac is the son of Abraham, and the reason we are looking at the life of Isaac is because Isaac is the son of Abraham, and when God blessed Abraham, he blessed him with his descendants. That's why we are looking at the life of Isaac here. And I think Isaac is just a testimony that when God blesses you, he also blesses your children. Yeah, that's the reason we are looking at Isaac today. Yeah, this is part 4 of the series. Part 1, we learned about Abraham's blessings. Part 2, also Abraham's blessings. Part 3, we learned about Abraham's character. Please catch up with part 1, 2, 3 before watching this one. Yeah, so point number 1, Isaac obeyed the Lord. Isaac obeyed the Lord, and I will be reading from Genesis chapter 26 verses 1 until 6, Amplified Bible. Now there was a famine in the land of Canaan beside the previous famine that had occurred in the days of Abraham. So Isaac went to Gerar to Abimelech, king of the Philistines. Verse 2, the Lord appeared to him and said, do not go down to Egypt. Stay in the land of which I tell you. Verse 3, live temporarily as a resident in the land, and I will be with you and bless you and favor you. For I will give all these lands to you and your descendants, and I will establish and carry out the oath which I swore to Abraham your father. Verse 4, I will make your descendants multiply as the stars of heavens, and I will give to your descendants all these lands. And by your descendants shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. Verse 5, because Abraham listened to and obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. So Isaac stayed in Gerar. Yeah. So the first thing that I want us to take from this passage, or that I want us to learn from these verses, is that the oath of the Lord is established when we obey. The oath of the Lord is established when we obey. What do I mean? So in the beginning of the video, I said that when God blesses you, he also blesses your children. And what we are learning here is that God had an oath with Abraham, and the oath was that, God will bless Abraham, God will bless his descendants, God will give Abraham a land, God will give Abraham's descendants a land, right? That was one of the blessings. So God is saying to Isaac that stay in this land. Don't go to Egypt, but stay in this land. And if you stay in this land, I believe it was Gerar, then I will bless you. I will bless you. If you stay in this land, I will favor you. If you stay in this land, I will multiply your descendants. Yeah. So if we look at this blessing of Abraham, of Isaac, what God was talking to Isaac, or what God was telling Isaac, it is what he already told Abraham. It is the oath of Abraham. And God is saying to Isaac, I had an oath with your father, but for that oath to be established, you need to obey me. You need to live in the land that I'm telling you to live. So the oath of the Lord is established when we obey. That's why it is very important, parents, it is so important for you to teach your children obedience, because God might bless you with your children, but if your children are disobedient, they might not inherit the blessing. Yeah, the blessing might never be carried out in their lives if they are disobedient. So it is so important for parents to teach your children obedience, so that the oath of the Lord, the oath that God will have with you, may be established. Yeah. So the oath of the Lord established when we obey. Yeah. And then the second thing that I want us to take from this passage is that location is the key to the blessing. Location is key to the blessing. Yeah. If you are in Northwest Province and your blessing is in Gauteng Province, you might miss the blessing. Yeah. So, and this is just an example. So God was very clear to Isaac that stay in this location. Stay in this location. If you stay in this location, then I will bless you. If you stay in this location, then I will favor you. Yeah. So we need to be located in the place where God is telling us to be located. We need where the location is where our blessings are. Yeah. So in order for us to receive the blessings, we need to be in the location that God is telling us to be in. Yeah. I just want to tell you a story. This story happened last year. So last year I went to a grocery store with my daughter after work. Yeah. So normally after school she attends the aftercare program. So I normally pick her up after my work. Yeah. So we went to the grocery store. The intention was to get few things, and I had a limited time for getting that groceries. So we got few things, and then we went to the queue, and I told her, "Neventle, stay in this queue. I'm just going to pick one more item. So remain in this queue." And the grocery store have these queues. So there is a queue for the items that are less than 10 or fewer, and the rest of the queues, it's for big items. So the queue that I told her to stay in, it was the queue of items less than 10. Yeah. And normally that queue is very fast. Yeah. So the intention was to pick few things and just purchase our items and leave the grocery store as soon as we can. Yeah. So I told her, "Never remain in this queue." And I left her in the queue. I went to pick up the item. Few minutes after that, she followed me. And when we came back together to the queue that she was in, the queue was closed. And I said to her, "Newentle, if you remained in the queue, if you remained in where I told you to remain, you would be done by this time." And unfortunately, we left the store because there was no way I was going to queue in other queues for bigger items. We left the queue without purchasing the items. And when I got into my car driving back home, I felt God telling me that this is how I feel when you are disobedient. This is the very same way that you're feeling. This is how I feel when you are disobedient. Yeah. So it is so important to obey God. It is so important to obey God. And Isaac obeyed. Yeah. Let's continue reading from this same chapter 26 to see what happened when Isaac obeyed. Yeah, so this is what happened. Point number 2 that I have here: Isaac reaped 100 times. Isaac reaped 100 times. I tried to look in the Bible to see where Abraham reaped 100 times. I couldn't find it. And if you know, please comment with the scripture on my comment section. So and the verse for this 100 reaped 100 times is in Genesis chapter 26 verse 12. Then Isaac planted seed in that land as a farmer and reaped in the same year 100 times as much as he had planted, and the Lord blessed and favored him. Yeah, that's a lot of harvest. That is a lot of harvest, 100-fold. Yeah. And the other thing that we can learn about the blessing of God is that You need to plant. You need to plant. You might have the blessing of God in your life. God might have blessed you. But if you are not planting, you will not have the harvest. Yeah, Isaac worked. Yeah, Isaac was useful with his hands. And because he planted, he reaped 100 times as much as he had planted. Yeah, so I think this is very important for us believers, for us the children of God, to be useful with our hands so that we may reap the harvest. Yes, so Isaac reaped 100 times. The third thing that happened to Isaac when he obeyed the Lord is that the second thing, which is point number 3 in this note, Isaac was very wealthy. Isaac was very wealthy, and we see this in Genesis chapter 26 verse 13, Amplified Bible. And the man Isaac became great and gained more and more until he became very wealthy and extremely distinguished. Verse 14, he owned flocks and herds and a great household with a number of servants, and the Philistines envied him. Yeah, so we can see in these 2 verses that Isaac was very wealthy. Yeah, and then point number 4, God was with Isaac. We see this in verses 24 of the same chapter 26. The Lord appeared to him the same night and said, I am the God of Abraham your father. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless and favor you and multiply your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham. Yeah. And then point number 5, God spoke to Isaac. So throughout chapter 26 of Genesis, God was speaking to Isaac. God was speaking to Isaac. God spoke to Abraham, and he continued to speak to Isaac, Abraham's son. Yeah, so it is a blessing to hear from the Lord. It is a blessing to hear from the source. It is a blessing to hear from the one who created you. Yeah, and we see, you can look at this below scriptures on how God spoke to Abraham. It's in Genesis chapter 26 how God spoke to Isaac. It's in Genesis chapter 26 verse 2, Genesis chapter 26 verse 24. Yes. Point number 6, Isaac died old and full of years. Isaac died old and full of years. We see this in Genesis chapter 35 verses 28 to 29, Amplified Bible. Now the days of Isaac were 180 years. Verse 29, Isaac's spirit departed and he died and was gathered to his people who had preceded him in death, an old man full of days, satisfied and fulfilled. Yeah. So Isaac died old and full of years. It's a blessing. It's a blessing not to only die old, but to die old and full of years, to die old and satisfied, to die old and fulfilled. It's a blessing. Yeah. So in conclusion, we learned that when God blesses you, he also blesses your children. But the oath of God is established when we obey. Yeah, your children will only receive the blessings. Your children will only receive the blessing that God gave to you if they only obey. And we learned that obedience is important. Obedience is the key on receiving the blessings. Yeah, we need to obey. We also need to teach our children obedience. Yeah, obedience to God. Yeah. And then the second point, and Isaac obeyed. That's what we learned. The second point, Isaac reaped 100 times. Yeah. And the third point that we learned, Isaac was very wealthy as his father Abraham. Fourth point, God was with Isaac as he was with Abraham. Fifth point, God spoke to Isaac as he spoke to Abraham. Point number 6, Isaac died old and full of years as his father Abraham. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Please take care and be blessed. Goodbye.